Hi, it's Mrs. Fletcher. I am excited for you to come in and do your hands-on final at the end of the week. So this is really your message for the whole week since we won't see each other very much. I need to give you some information so that you can successfully complete these designs because we just haven't been able to get you all of the information when we were in class together. So here are just some reminders for Monday the 14th. By 3 o'clock, you should watch this slideshow and turn in the assignment given on the last slide. At 12:30, meet at L14 to load wreaths, if you're at all possible able to do that. 1:15, I'm estimating we'll meet at Lion Real Estate in Cameron Park. It's in the Safeway Shopping Center. And there we will unload the wreaths, put on the last bows, do a little quality control, like fluffing up those bows so they look good, and give those to the customer. And so these are our 70 wreaths that were purchased by a community member. And then we'll go back to L14 around 2:30 and meet there to process the final flower order, which is a pretty big order because it's for both classes and everyone is making their own design to take home in the final, as you know. Anything you choose to do of those counts as an FFA activity or for extra credit if you already have all of your FFA activities. And we just really need the help. I hope that you're going to meet me and I won't be delivering those 70 wreaths by myself. Just a little reminder here in red at the bottom that your AET record book update is due on Tuesday the 15th by 10 p.m. All right, so things are a little different when you come in to make a holiday design in terms of greens. And so that's part of what I need to talk to you about. So starting on the left in this picture, we will have some pine available. And you can see the pine has these longer needles on it and clusters of needles. And there's very little pine that comes in our order. It's a mixed box of greens. And so if you really want pine, you may want to be a little bit self-sufficient and look for some yourself if that's what you have in mind. Christmas tree farms at this time generally give away all those bottom branches that they cut off so that people can put their trees in their stands and fit them on their cars and so on. So if you wanted to go look for some or cut some on your own place and be sure that you have some, you might want to bring some of that on the day of your final. If you can live without pine specifically, everything else we get enough of for it to go around for everybody. Here on the top left, we have cedar, and you can see how flat that lies. And then on the top right, we have juniper, and that's kind of the opposite. See how that has a lot of volume to it, and it's kind of a puffy type of green. And then this is Douglas fir in the middle on the right. And these two on the bottom are two other kinds of fir. And unfortunately, I don't know the difference between every kind of fir that we receive, but you can see how short and even their needles are and that the needles stand straight up and down. So it really has a very different growth habit than our pine would have. So I don't know that you need to be able to identify each of these, but you need to be able to know how they work. So here is pine and cedar, and both of these could be used for lines, and that's probably how you would want to use them. They're going to stand the way you want them to a certain degree, although the pine's going to have some curve to it, as you can see, and you can't really change that. I guess you could if you wired it, like if you were to put a wire around the stem and make it bend really in any direction that you want. That's how people make those Grinch trees. They wire around the greens and then they curve them down. The cedar is finer, as you can see. So if you tried to green an entire design with cedar, that would take a lot of material and a lot of time because it's so thin. You would just have to layer and layer upon layer. Here's the cedar again. And so you can see from this side view how it makes a great line, but not necessarily covers a lot of territory when you're trying to cover up a mechanic. So if you keep it short, it'll make a straight line. If you keep it longer, you can make it drape over the side of your container if you're trying to cover a container that's not so attractive, or those of you who might do a more exciting shape like a triangle or a crescent, this might work the way you need it to. Or like I said, you can wire up the stem and then you can bend it in whatever direction you need. Here's the juniper. This is great for filling spaces because you can see it's kind of fluffy. It does have blue-gray berries on it, and it gives you kind of a rough, more natural looking texture. And you could either cut, if you look here on the left, you could cut lower down and use that entire branch, or you can cut these small pieces and just fit in small pieces, especially if you're working in foam. So this one's really good for filling holes. And then the firs, these are the most rigid. So if you're wanting to do a vertical line and you need something to stand straight up, this works really well. You also can, of course, cut it apart to make many smaller lines or to fill a spot. This will not drape. And so that's one of the things that you have to learn to do when you're working with conifers is work with the way they are naturally. This will never fall over or drape down on the side of a container. That's just not how it acts. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of designs. So this is just a wooden box, and I'm showing you here that if you can find a plastic liner to fit in your container, not just a wooden box, any kind of container. If you can find a pre-made plastic liner like this, that might work for you if you are wanting to work in foam and your container is not watertight. The problem is, like with these wooden boxes, if you're working with wet foam and the foam is above that, we saw this problem with our fall designs, then it starts to seep into the wood here on the top, and you might have a design that eventually leaks. So here's how you can line any container. So this is a skill that I haven't shown you, but a lot of you will need as you're going into this assignment because you've chosen these really cute containers, but they're not watertight. So you take a roll of cellophane, and you can see on the left, I'm just rolling that out over the top. And you need more than you think you do because it's going to go down into the container. So on the right here, you can see how I've cut it way out here on the edge. So it's much bigger than the container itself. And then you're going to push it down into the container as we did on the left, and then put your foam inside of that. So see how much is used when you go ahead and push it down inside. Then you have all this weird cellophane on the outside, and you're just going to trim that back. You do not want to trim it so that it is inside of your container. That would help you later. You wouldn't have to cover it. But the problem is then you're allowing for that water to leak out. So go ahead and leave it about a 1/2 inch outside of the container overlapping. And then if you need to, of course, on the right, if it's wiggling around, you're going to tape that in with bowl tape. So this is what it would look like from the side. And you have some tape coming down. So all these mechanics you need to be aware of covering, of course, later on as you finish your design. All right, so I decided to show you just a simple round, remind you how that goes, kind of show you that with conifers in this wooden box. So here's the piece of cedar that I started with on the left. And you can see how you can cut out lateral pieces and use those for lines. So you don't have to just use the tip of this whole branch. That's a little bit wasteful if you don't need such a large piece, but look how many pieces you could get if you were to cut the laterals off right down the stem here. This is one of the most important things I have to tell you is that you need to create a stem to go into the foam or create a stem that will go below the water line if you're working in a vase. And so you have to actually pull off those needles on the bottom, create a stem that then you can insert. If you're feeling lost or pressured at the beginning of your final, I'm always going to tell you, or really any time in life, any design you're doing any day, always go back to your foundation, to what we first taught you. And that was to use your principles. So start with lines to establish the shape and size. So horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines so that you are creating the size and shape. I'm showing you here how you can efficiently use what you're given in terms of greens because there is a limit to what you'll be given. So this piece on the left can be cut into 2 pieces maybe even 3, and you can use them in various places of your design. So maybe you would want to use this piece that has an actual nice tip on it as a line, but then don't throw this bottom piece away. Clear off the stem and then use that in the bottom where it's not going to be seen, but it will cover up some of those mechanics. Otherwise, you're going to run out of greens. All right, so here I have put in some horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines. We want to use 2 or more types of greens in each design unless you have some reason why you only want to use one kind. But in general, if you use more than one type, you will create interest and value. You'll add value to your design. So here I wanted to add in some fur. And so you can see that when I tried to make these vertical lines with my cedar, they're not really standing up. They're kind of flopping out sideways. I know the fur is very rigid and it'll stand straight up when I put it in there. And from the one piece I have there on the left, I could probably cut at least 8 laterals and have 8 pieces to put into a design. So here's how those look when we mix them together and kind of use them the way they're meant to be. Do not let your cut ends show. So although we're working down the length of a piece of conifer, we don't ever want these cut ends to show. That is poor quality control. It is low quality designing. But we also don't want to throw things away. So you can use these by hiding them at the bottom of the design where you're adding volume and color, but people are not necessarily going to be peeking under to find those cut ends. I'm showing you here that this one piece of fur could actually be cut twice and be turned into 3 pieces. So just another way to efficiently use your greens. The juniper, as we said, is great for filling in holes. And so as you're trying to cover that block of foam, you can either use a lot of cedar and a lot of your time, or you could go back and find something like the fir or juniper to cover all that foam, the cellophane, your tape, and so on. All right, so once you're finished greening, remember that we just go back to our basics. So create lines with buds. If in your design you didn't happen to have enough of these white pom-pom buds to get this accomplished, then just be creative. What else could you use in order to create a line? Maybe you could use hypericum berries, or maybe you could use a closed carnation. I went ahead and put in diagonals of those pom-poms, just like we've always taught you to do, so that's another step. All mass flowers are then placed, so you're going to have some carnations, you're going to have some spider mums, and then you're going to have 2 colors of hypericum berries. And then on the right, this is what it looks like when it's filled with baby's breath. And here I want to emphasize to you, you should have very little waste left over at the end. And so on the left, there's my waste pile. That's what I have left. So not too much in terms of usable goods there. And on the right, I'm just reminding you that before you leave your design and go on to the next step of accessorizing, go ahead and wash all that pitch or sap off of your hands. Otherwise, if you're using a light colored ribbon, it's going to transfer onto the ribbon and then everything's going to look dirty. One of the great ways we have to get sap or pitch off your fingers is to use a leaf shine because it's oil-based. It will break that down. Just be sure you wash your hands with soap afterwards. All right, so we have lots of options for accessories once you feel that your design is basically done, but you may also feel like you have holes in your design and it doesn't look finished, and so then you might want to put in some accessories to help with that. Ways to apply your accessories are with wire picks, which are right there in the center, hot glue, glue dots, any other means that will make that accessory stable and where the mechanics will become invisible. You can use regular floral wire. You can use twine to tie things on. You could use some raffia. Lots of options. So I just want to talk to you about the pine cones for a second. On the left, we have a pine cone that has nothing on it, and then we have a wired pick. And what you would do is you just kind of lace the wire through the pine cone and pull it tight to the pick. And then you'll see on the right, when you actually put that pine cone into the design, you're just going to push that pick all the way into the foam and it will disappear, and you'll situate the pine cone so the wire isn't showing either. Here's another example. This is like a wooden ornament, and sometimes you don't have to wire at all. Like inside of this wooden ornament, it's styrofoam. And so I could just take the sharp end of the pick and stab it essentially, and it'll stay on there. And you can see on the other end, I just wrapped all that wire up because I didn't need it. And then you would just push that into the foam. This is how it looks when we get that ornament placed. And so use your accessories as tools. Use them to fill holes, to separate light colors. So you can see I had a lot of white in this particular area, just one piece right on top of another. So this helped to break that up. You can also use your accessories to space out flowers if you're finding that your flowers are too close together. Draw attention to your focal area. Some of you will be creating a focal point, and so you can use accessories to highlight that. And then, of course, to repeat textures. So in this case, I'm using a wooden box. So I'm repeating that rustic, rough, brown color through these accessories, through the pine cone, and then through this ornament. There was one more accessory I liked, which was this twig ornament. And so I just used the wire on the pick to secure that. And then I wanted to remind you that you know a little bit more about what to do with ribbon now. And so you can make a ribbon flag out of our holiday ribbon that we have. And so you would take about 4 to 5 inches and you can cut a chevron in the end. You know how to do that now. You're going to put a wire, you're going to fold it over on itself, put a wire through that little tunnel, and then twist that wire so that you're creating this ribbon flag. That's pretty floppy when it's just on the wire. So I would then use a pick or a stem, you can use a flower stem for this too, and wire your flag onto something more stable, and then you can insert that flag into your design. And this is what my finished design ended up looking like. So you can see how the accessories are working. You can see where the lines are, the mass flowers, the filler, the ribbon. There's our finished result. I want to show you one more option, which is fast. And anytime you work in a vase, it's going to be faster than working in foam because you don't have this huge piece of foam to cover in terms of a mechanic. So this is just our typical 4-inch by 4-inch vase. And you can see that I gridded it with clear tape, bowl tape. Remember that for stability and balance in a vase, you want the stem to come all the way opposite of the flower head or the greens. So it should stretch all the way to the opposite side of the vase. It's when your stems are floating in the middle of the vase that things start to fall out, and that's really frustrating. So pull your vase to the edge of the table, measure your stem across the vase, and then cut. So once again, you're going to use lines to establish the height and width of your design. Remember, your design should be 1.5 to 2 times the width and 1.5 to 2 times the height of this vase. And so the biggest mistake I see with vase designs is people keep them in that little square vase. They keep them the same size as the vase itself. You should be working outside of the vase. Stretch your whole design outside of that. Once again, we've used 3 types of greens. We use cedar, pine. There's a piece of pine coming down here on the right-hand side. And then we've used some fir up here in the top so we could get those vertical lines that are standing straight up there in top. Be sure to check over the top, and you can see that even my demonstration design is not perfect here. I have lines missing and I have holes on both the left side right here. Hopefully you saw that, caught that, and even over here on the right. So after I took this picture, then I realized, oh, I have to do a little more work and even that out. Keep in mind that you want your stems below the waterline clean, so be sure that you are pulling those needles off high up on the stem. This will actually last a very long time, these conifer designs, if you use correct mechanics and keep your water clean. All right, so I created lines with buds once again. You need to keep stems long enough so that they can be stable in the water. So in this pom-pom picture here, this stem on the bottom, this flower that I pulled off, is not going to be long enough to do anything with this design. So just find a friend who's making a foam design and give that to them. You need something longer, like this stem on the top, in order to work in water. It has to stay longer. So I inserted all the mass flowers, trying to create visual balance, and I'm doing that through repetition of color and type and repetition of line, and then radiation, right? Radiating from the center of the design, and transition. And remember, transition is larger items towards the inside and lighter, smaller items towards the outside. I just wanted to show you one more time that you are the human being and that you are in control of where the flowers end up. So on the left here, I have a bad situation going on. I have two flowers right on top of each other, touching each other, and they're both white. So that is not working well for me. So what I did is I took my hypericum berries and I placed my berries in between those two at a little different depth also, so I'm not creating this wall of flowers, and also to separate those two white flowers. I could also have done that with an accessory. Check for holes as you're coming to the end of your vase design. So on the left here, I had a big hole going on right here between all these flowers. So I used my hypericum berries, again at a different depth, to go ahead and fill in that space. This is the waste and the trash pile that I had at the end of designing my vase. So again, this is what you should end up with at the end. I had some flower stems that were too short that I will give to a friend. And I had some greens I just didn't end up using. Maybe they were too short as well. And then this is my trash pile up here. So shoot for that. Be an efficient designer. Use everything that you can. You need to think about picking a theme when you go for accessories rather than just putting in everything you love and that you can find. You want to keep things in some kind of a theme. So here I chose silver and lime green. We would want to take off any tags that are left here. That just doesn't look professional. Hide your mechanics as you're putting those in. So I already talked about accessories a few times. I will just show you some other highlights. So some of our accessories come pre-picked, and that's super easy. You just put those in. Here is an idea for a pine cone if we run out of those wooden picks. You're not lost then if we don't have exactly what you need. Be creative. So I used a stem instead and made this pine cone able to be placed wherever I wanted it to go. The stem is a good idea because it doesn't cost you anything. They're always available right there on your table, so they're fast. And they blend in perfectly in that vase. You don't have this artificial pick that might be seen through the water of the vase. If you want to use an ornament, what I do is I just use this piece, this little metal piece that's already on it. I put the wire actually through that hole on the metal piece, and then I just wrap and wrap and wrap until the ornament becomes tight to the pick. And again, if you can't find a pick, you can always do this with a stem and your own piece of wire. Here's what those accessories look like and what the finished design looks like. So they do add a little bit of that metallic color, a little bit of pop. They make them kind of special for the holidays, but of course it's your choice what you want to put in. Make sure you do quality control at the end. We're spraying with finishing touch because that will allow our flowers to continue to open and develop. You do need to allow time for grading, about 15 minutes at the end of the class period, unless you can stay after class so I can finish up. But I do need to grade your design before you leave, so keep that in mind as you're managing your time. This is just another example. After doing about 4 designs, these were my waste piles. So we are trying to use everything we can and work efficiently so that everybody gets everything they need. Don't forget that on Friday at 1 o'clock, we're going to do some cleaning of the lab for the break, so we come back and everything is nice when we return. But that's also a time when you can come back and pick up materials if you want to take some more materials home. We definitely are going to have some students absent during finals week who are not able to do their hands-on finals, so I know we'll have extras. So Friday at 1 o'clock if you want to join us there. Your assignment today, on Monday, is to turn in a list of at least 10 things to do for your final design. Everybody's things to do will be different based on what you have in mind. List the steps in an efficient order. For example, the first thing that you want to do if you're doing a foam design is to soak your foam. And you want to do this first because you don't want to get everything else ready and then be waiting for the foam. So soak your foam and then go do the cellophane in your container. Get your accessories ready. You could pick all of your accessories in the beginning. Gather your materials, then go back and get your foam, and then, you'll continue your steps from there. So I'd like you to turn in 10 things to do when you get to class. You are under a time limit, so this is something we need to think about. And hopefully that answers all your questions as you're starting these Conifer designs. You can always ask me before the final. That's probably your best plan. I'll answer some questions on the day of the final. It's just that we're all under that time limit then. So you want to prepare as much as you can. All right, good luck with the beginning of your week. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday and Friday. Thank you.